to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this, the latest on what is intended to be the Katie Taylor versus Chantel Cameron rematch that is being targeted for November 25th in Dublin. Chantel Cameron retained her undisputed super lightweight championship for the first time when she upset the pound-for-pound #1 and female boxing's biggest star, Katie Taylor, in Taylor's Ireland homecoming this May. Cameron claimed 95-95, 96-94, 96-94 majority decision win over Taylor. The Irish woman has since activated her contractual rematch clause. I believe that there was some desire from the Chantel Cameron side of things to have a little bit more say-so in the second fight. We know more or less that's what her trainer, Jamie Moore. But that's not how it works, because in accepting the first fight with Katie Taylor, the terms for the second fight were already preordained, written into the contract. Basically already agreed. There are strings attached, and when you're dealing with one of boxing's biggest stars, there always are. That's the way it works. It reminds me of when Andy Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua in their first fight. He thought he had some say-so as to where the second one would happen. Second fight. As it turns out, it wasn't up to him. It was up to Matchroom. It was up to Anthony Joshua. Now, this pair are reportedly targeting their second fight to headline a DAZN fight card on Saturday, November 25th at the 9,000 capacity 3 Arena in Dublin, Ireland, according to International Boxing News. Cameron exclusively revealed to No Smoke Sport in an interview that the rematch was looking likely for Ireland and for Cameron's 440-pound titles. Unfortunately, I'm being told is that it's in Dublin again, and it's for my belts again, Cameron told No Smoke Sport. I think that's all going to be on Katie's terms. It's the way it is. You saw a similar situation play out between Canelo Alvarez and Dmitri Bivol. Dmitri, like Chantel Cameron, had a desire to fight Canelo for his belts at a lower weight. That didn't happen. It doesn't appear it's going to happen for Chantel either. Chantel wanted the chance to become a 2-time undisputed champion. Katie's still undisputed at lightweight. She still has all the belts there. Chantel wanted to fight for hers. In truth, I think a fight at lightweight would have favored Katie Taylor more than a return to super lightweight. At super lightweight, Chantel has all the advantages. She's the bigger, fresher, younger fighter. Stronger. She'll be just as strong in the second fight as she was in the first if the second fight takes place at 140. Yeah. Chantel wanted the chance to become a 2-weight undisputed champion, just like Dmitri Bivol, who I just mentioned in the Canelo Alvarez negotiations. The North Indian is happy to move down a weight class in the second fight to challenge for Taylor's undisputed title. The undisputed champion also doesn't want to come to Dublin again and would like to see the fight at a neutral venue. It would be nice if we could go somewhere different and have the rematch. I would like to have it a bit more neutral. She don't want Katie to have home field advantage, and I don't blame her. But Chantel will have some advantages of her own because the fight's being fought at 140 and not at 135, in spite of Chantel's desire to move down in weight and shoot for undisputed at another weight. She hasn't made lightweight since 2018. That's roughly, what, 4 or 5 years? I feel like that would have favored Katie. Which is what makes this decision to return to 140 pounds even more curious. Now, some may feel that Katie doesn't want her undisputed reign at lightweight in jeopardy. She doesn't want it up for grabs. Having already lost to Chantel, now she knows what she can do. She doesn't want to gamble. Some people might feel that way, but need I remind you that Michaela Mayer is currently the mandatory challenger for Katie Taylor's WBC title. And if the fight with Chantel, if the rematch, were at 135 pounds, I could see the WBC holding off on enforcing a mandatory, though if it's not, they might push for one. Between now and November, they might, to help put a belt in Michaela Mayer's hands. I could see it. No, I actually like Katie's chances of perhaps winning the rematch at lightweight, but it's super lightweight. It's the same as it was before. It's not that Katie didn't have any success in that first fight. She did. It's just that it was a day late and $1 short. Now, her best bet is to just use what she learned. Use what she learned about Chantel in the first fight and try to apply it in the second. That lateral movement and trying to create space, it's not going to work. Chantel's bigger, longer, and stronger. She'll only gain momentum by walking. Katie Taylor down. What she's got to try to do is meet her head on and outfight her,
like she did in the second half of the fight.
Mid-range to inside, Katie Taylor was able to string together rapid-fire combinations faster than Chantel Cameron, faster than she could keep up.
She was beating her to the punch in the pocket,
where Katie Taylor seemed to be the faster fighter of the two, though it's not without its perils.
The more you open up, the more you're open.
Open to be hit, and Katie Taylor, she's already been in wars. She's not getting any younger.
It's the caveat. Katie has to be well within striking distance of Chantel to use that hand speed.
But you know, it was working. It was an adjustment that Katie Taylor made in the second half of the fight, but she was having success with it.
She's just got to try to pick up where she left off in the rematch.
You know, it's at 140. Chantel will be just as strong in the second fight as she was in the first. A big advantage for her.
We'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches.
Men's light heavyweight news. Dmitri Bivol says, I don't want to move up in weight until I finish things at 175, which is a bit strange, it being that he was willing to move down to 168 pounds, having not finished things at 175.
But he's not willing to move up.
Not that I want him to move up. I prefer he stay there. I prefer that the fight with Artur Beterbiev happen.
Yeah.
Dmitri Bivol wants to make a stand in his own weight class before hopping to other ones. In that way, the light heavyweight titleist from Russia differs from one Canelo Alvarez. In a recent interview, Bivol revealed that he does not share the same urgency as Alvarez when it comes to tackling new divisions. Alvarez is a champion in 4 weight classes and the current undisputed champion of the super middleweight division, whereas Bivol, a career light heavyweight, currently holds the WBA title in that division.
I mean, he says that he's not willing to move up until he gets everything done at light heavyweight, but he was willing to move down.
I guess it only works one way in his mind, and you can make of that what you will. In truth, I think that Dmitri inadvertently painted himself into a corner, standing on his square, wanting to fight Canelo at 168 as opposed to Canelo, who wanted to fight him at 175.
In the second fight.
It costed him the fight. Let's call a spade a spade.
It's what it did, and now what is he left with?
Dmitri Bivol says he doesn't feel right chasing belts in new weight classes when he has so much more to accomplish at 175. Of course, in my dreams, I want to fight for belts, cruiserweight, middleweight, but in reality, I have to finish deals in my own weight class, Bivol told Fight Hub TV. I don't want to move somewhere until I finish things in my weight class. Maybe one day, I don't know. I'm not big enough for cruiserweight, but maybe one day, I don't know, I will see some interesting fight for belts. I don't know, maybe. Maybe I will take this challenge for me to move up to cruiserweight.
Now, the reason that I think Canelo deserves a lot of credit,
where Canelo Alvarez is a 4-division champion, having moved up in weight several times, taking on several fighters that are noticeably bigger than he is, with bigger physical dimensions. Other fighters, when faced with that same prospect, are not as willing as Canelo.
Dmitri may have beaten him.
But what does it say about Dmitri that he's not as willing to roll the dice at a higher weight as Canelo Alvarez has been?
What does it say about Dmitri? What does it say about a lot of these guys?
That he's not willing to move up, but he was willing to move down. Bivol has previously stated that he could make 168 if a belt was at stake. There was some talk that the rematch between Bivol and Alvarez would take place at 168 instead of at 175. Bivol then made it clear, if he went up in weight, he would not demand a catch weight, in the way that, say, Alvarez apparently did when he was in talks to fight Badu Jack.
Well, for Canelo, that would be his 5th division, his 5th weight class. For Dmitri, it would only be his 2nd.
I don't understand why so many people are pretending that Canelo Alvarez is this physically imposing fighter. This is a very short, stumpy guy.
Much to the chagrin of Canelo's boo-birds, there was actually a precedence for him to ask for a catch weight in the Jack fight.
No catch weight, Bivol said. Only for the real weight. Catch weight could be for belts, it could be or not. If one day I want to fight at cruiserweight, it will not be at a catch weight. Just cruiserweight.
And that sounds good, but he's not actually going up there.
Not yet, anyway. I want to say that Dmitri Bivol, in demanding that the second fight with Canelo happen at 168, nothing happened. Nothing at all.
Nope.
And he was supposed to be in talks to face Dan Aziz.
Dan Aziz of the United Kingdom, an unbeaten up-and-comer. Dan had 2 choices. He could fight Dmitri Bivol for the WBA title, which would have been a huge step up in competition for Dan.
But he had the option of fighting Dmitri for the WBA title or fighting his countryman countryman Joshua Buatsi. And as luck would have it, Dan has chosen to fight Joshua Buatsi instead.
So now Dmitri is not fighting Canelo in a rematch, and he's not fighting Dan Aziz.
People have the audacity to question my rationale, my logic, when I say that Dmitri Bivol and Vadim Kornilov overplayed their hand.
If we're talking about what's in their best interests, they should have just chosen to fight Canelo again at 175 like he asked.
Because now they've been left out in the cold without a dance partner. We are 7 months into this year, and Dmitri hasn't fought yet, and I don't know if he's going to. The only guy that seems interested in taking on Dmitri Bivol is former WBC champion of the Ukraine, Alexander Gvozdyk.
The only guy I see calling him out.
Gvozdyk targets Bivol, has no issues facing Russians. I'm trying to damage him, not play with him.
Think it's flying under the radar that the former champion has since returned to action, and he's had 2 comeback fights, 2 fights in the last 12 months.
Turn fight against the journeyman on a Marv Nation show over there in the West Coast, and he was more recently in action on the undercard of Canelo versus Ryder. Opposite the ring, Ricard Bolotniks, who he battered.
Now he wants Bivol.
In a recent interview, Gvozdyk made it clear he wants to fight WBA champion of Russia, Dmitri Bivol. Moreover, Gvozdyk said he has no qualms facing Russian fighters, despite edicts from several of boxing's sanctioning bodies banning Russian and Belarusian fighters from competing for their titles.
Do you think he's motivated by the war?
These sentiments expressed wanting to face a fighter, a champion of Russian descent, well, perhaps at least in part, but there's also proximity to factor in. There are only 2 champions at this weight, Artur Beterbiev and Dmitri Bivol, and Alexander, he already fought Artur, got beat by Artur.
I don't think he wants to fight him again.
Not yet, anyway. The only other champion at this weight is Dmitri Bivol, so it's not like Alexander Gvozdyk has a whole lot to choose from. He doesn't.
No,
The same applies to Dmitri.
He ain't got a whole lot of options either.
Bivol is who I am targeting now. Gvozdyk told ProBox TV, listen, we are going to have a fight. We are not going to play. We are going to fight, which is not a problem for me. Our soldiers fight in a battlefield. I'm doing this in the ring. I will try to hit him and to damage him. I don't think this is supposed to be a problem. There are a lot of these views that the Russian fighters are supposed to be disqualified because of their citizenship, you know? I'm not an organization. I'm not a guy who is in charge to make this type of decision. If there is an opportunity to fight one of these guys, like I said, I'm not going to play with them. I'm going to fight with them, which is totally okay for me.
Addressing the WBC's hardline stance that they will not allow Dmitri Bivol or any other Russian fighter to fight for any version of their title so long as the war continues.
Make of that what you will, but Alexander does not have those reservations. He's happy to compete against Russian fighters, Dmitri Bivol in particular. And Dmitri, he's not at liberty to turn his nose up at him. He doesn't have any options.
Alternatives.
You know, I haven't even heard Dmitri address these call-outs from Alexander Gvozdyk. I haven't heard him broach the subject, but he's running out of options, and I think Eddie Hearn is running out of ideas.
Tried to do the Canelo rematch, and they couldn't do it, and when that didn't work, they tried to get him Dan Aziz.
This is not what I expected this year would look like for last year's Fighter of the Year. Last year was the best year in Dmitri Bivol's career, and who would have thought that the following year would play out like this?
He's lost all momentum.
You guys wonder why I say that. He overplayed his hand. If he would have fought Canelo Alvarez for a second time at 175, most people would have favored Dmitri to win, and at least he would have had a fight now.
Now what is he left with?
No Canelo, no Dan Aziz, no fight.
Nobody but Alexander Gvozdyk interested in sharing the ring with him.
See what he does. And finally, south of light heavyweight at middleweight, per a tweet from Michael Benson, WBC President Mauricio Suleiman has insisted that they are not stripping Jermall Charlo of his WBC middleweight world title. The title has had movement.
When?
Carlos Adames is interim champion. We have explained Jermall's situation plenty of times and will continue to support him in spite of how it might alienate Carlos Adames, the interim champion, who's been very vocal. He wants to get Jermall in the ring. That's the whole goddamn point.
I mean, that's why you climb up the ranks, and that's why you fight for the interim title. That's why you pay those sanctioning fees, so that one day you can fight for the full title.
That's the whole point. Even worse is that Jermall Charlo, who not but a few weeks ago was supposed to be in talks to fight Canelo Alvarez, has made it clear he won't be ready to fight Canelo in September. Canelo, the face of boxing. Canelo, who can get you the most money anywhere at or around this weight. This guy is in no condition to even cash out.
Think about that.
2 years removed from the sport. That's 2 years that the title hasn't been in circulation. 2 years later, Jermall Charlo is in no condition to even cash himself out and sell his O to Canelo, but the WBC insists on letting him hold on to that title. They won't even label him a champion in recess.
The guy's as good as retired.
If you ask me, the damage of all of this is already done. There's a reason the middleweight division isn't the glamour weight, isn't the hot weight class that it used to be not but a few years ago when Canelo was there and Gennady Golovkin.
Daniel Jacobs, David Lemieux.
It was a much more vibrant, talked about division in the sport of boxing than it is here today. There's seldom any exciting news coming out of today's middleweight division, and this is a big part of it. You have a guy holding a belt, he's not defending.
Nope.
The organization, the sanctioning body, they don't want to do their job.
Why?
I told you why. I think they're being paid under the table to allow Jermall to keep that belt, because outside of that, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. You're not collecting sanctioning fees from this guy. You're alienating all the other ranked fighters at middleweight by way of the WBC, at least.
I mean, if nothing else, you're definitely alienating Carlos Adames.
Carlos should take a stand. If his title shot, if his crack at Jermall Charlo or Jermall's belt is nowhere in sight, Jermall, who has ruled himself out of a September return, if he wasn't fit to fight Canelo in September, he's not going to be fit to fight anybody.
Carlos should take a stand.
Back in 2016, Canelo Alvarez took a stand against the WBC, who at that time wanted him to fight Gennady Golovkin, and he showed them who's in charge, who's the boss. Carlos should do the same, and I understand that Carlos Adames doesn't have Canelo's marquee value. He ain't got the same juice as Canelo, but you know what he does have?
He's got TV money behind him.
However big or however small, it's still money that the WBC depends on.
How do you think it all breaks down?
Where do you think the money comes from? A promoter's broadcast partner gives them a budget to put on fights. They put on those fights and the fighters get paid, and a part of what they get paid goes to the sanctioning bodies by way of sanctioning fees. And if Carlos isn't going to get his crack at the WBC title, the full one, anytime soon, he's not going to get Jermall in the ring.
Then why should he keep paying them? Why should he even prioritize hanging on to a secondary title? It's useless.
The function it is supposed to serve is not in service, because the WBC is giving Jermall all the leniency, all the amnesty.
Carlos should take a stand.
I understand that is easier said than done, but he should take a stand and he should let everybody see it to set that example, that it's not the sanctioning bodies that are in charge, it's the fighters, because the sanctioning bodies rely on those fighters. They rely on the sanctioning fees they siphon from them.
From their purses.
And for what? So that you can reserve your right to not do your fucking job, the job that Carlos and fighters like him are essentially paying you to do?
Then fuck you.
Keep your interim title. Who fucking needs it? Who fucking needs you?
It's not a real title anyway.